Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Infinity and this is Magnetize Yourself, where we talk about life, love, spirituality, and of course the law of attraction. In today's video, we are talking about soul contracts, specifically overlapping soul contracts. And particularly, what happens when we have multiple coinciding contract situations spiritually with different souls? Now, inherently, the first question that people typically ask is, why would we as souls create soul contracts that feel conflicting or contradicting, that overlap in some way? Well, first of all, we always have multiple simultaneous overlapping soul contracts. Very often, if these soul contracts feel harmonious and compatible for us, meaning they seem to work together in a peaceful, harmonious way in our life, then we don't really think about the fact that they're overlapping because they go very well together. So what I mean by this is, of course, we are always, in a sense, surrounded by our soul family to some degree. Many of us incarnate into physical families where we have either siblings or parents, grandparents, some relative near us, or multiples who are part of our soul family as well. When I say soul family, of course, I mean those that we share a core soul frequency similar to. So it's only identical in the case of a twin flame. And of course, we can get into that later. But with our soul family, the frequency is incredibly similar. So there is a natural, automatic soul contracts. My guides were joking that our soul family contracts are on automatic renewal, like an automatically renewing subscription, lifetime after lifetime. They're just always kind of there and present. We agree that we will incarnate together, we will support each other, and we will provide a sense of home and familiarity to one another physically as we embark on this adventurous journey on planet Earth. Beyond those automatic soul contracts with our family, we do have many other more specific contracts with other souls that can range from something as small and simple as, okay, on this date at this time, we're going to meet in the grocery store. We're going to exchange eye contact. It's going to be powerful. And through that powerful moment of shared eye contact, we are both going to be slightly shaken awake spiritually to more remembrance of who we really are beneath the surface. They could be that simplistic, and yet, is it really simple when it's so powerful? Even those smallest moments of interaction can be incredibly powerful, which is why they're termed in these soul contracts. Soul contracts can also be incredibly complex. It could be as complex as, okay, our whole physical lifetime, we are going to be engaged in this intense romantic connection that neither of us are capable of walking away from, and yet that we feel such intense growth and development through every step of the way. And these contracts can, of course, be everything in between. We can also have multiple contracts with the same soul. So in some cases, we will have a soulmate, let's say a family member. In this case, let's say you have a mother who is a soulmate. So you share a similar core soul frequency. So you have that automatic contract to love and support one another. However, let's say in this scenario that you also have a contract that you are going to trigger each other in some kind of way that is going to teach you both a lesson and activate you both to a higher level of your own potential. In this case, we would call this a karmic soulmate because you are soulmates. You share a similar core soul frequency. However, you also have this one-off karmic contract on top of that soulmate connection. So in these cases, when the karma is resolved with this person who is also a soulmate, then you will return back to that underlying harmonious, mutually supportive, beautiful soulmate connection. Now, if you don't have a double contract with a soul, it's also possible that you could simply have karma with them and no underlying soulmate contract. Not every karmic is a karmic soulmate, and not every soulmate is a karmic soulmate, if that makes sense. So in the case of a karmic, purely a karmic connection with no underlying soul bond, let's say in the case of a mother, your mother is actually a karmic. Then you would have a contract typically based on past life interactions that we then call accumulated karma, in a desire to balance the karmic scales between you and this person, and also to facilitate mutual soul growth and expansion. You may decide to incarnate with a karmic as your mother for the purpose of triggering each other intensely and perhaps getting into very intense fights, arguments, triggering each other's fears and insecurities. And in this case, let's say there's no real underlying soul contract there, soul compatibility in terms of being soulmates. In this case, this may be a person that ultimately one or both of you simply kind of fade out when it comes to communication. Now, of course, in the example of a parent, things can become a bit more complex because of our family and genetic ties to this person. So I suppose I could have used a different example here, such as a friend or a lover. But in the case of a karmic, generally, once that karmic contract has been fulfilled, once you've both learned that lesson together, then you will typically be able to part ways harmoniously or maintain this harmonious feeling about the other at a distance where you aren't really actively part of each other's physical life reality or existence, but you've resolved this karmic contract between the two of you. But again, in many, many cases, it is the case that these are karmic soulmate connections where there is this potential for a very harmonious, beautiful, mutually supportive connection, but there's also this double contract of the karma that needs to be worked out first with this person, the lesson that needs to be learned. Okay, so the reason that sometimes our overlapping soul contracts seem to conflict is because, yes, as a soul, we do create a soul's blueprint. So we have a map of how we want our life to look, how we want things to play out in our life. But we also do, as a human, have free will on this earth. So nothing is really concrete or set in stone. So because of this, sometimes we will get into a situation as a human where we or someone else exercises their free will in a way that artificially extends the soul contract. So let's just say this is one reason for overlapping soul contracts that seem to conflict. This isn't the only reason. But sometimes, let's say that someone is in a relationship with a karmic, and so they are karmic to each other. They have this karmic contract to work out some past life accumulated karma to facilitate each other's soul growth through immense triggering, immense pain they experience through the connection and through each other. If one or both parties in this situation exercises their free will in such a way that they are refusing to or not wanting to learn the lesson, not wanting to let go, we can remain feeling as though we are energetically still very much bonded in, and maybe even physically, materially bonded in with this other person beyond, let's say, the expiry date of this karmic contract when it was intended to expire. Now, in this case, sometimes what will happen is, in order to illuminate that pattern even more intensely, a different soul contract will initiate itself, will enter our life for the purpose of breaking us out of a loop, helping us shift out of this karmic pattern or cycle where we may have become very stuck. When two parties, especially in connection karmically, continue to exercise their free will to continuously engage in unconscious patterns with each other, very often this leads to what we could call karmic looping, where it becomes this unconscious loop that is so habitual, it's very challenging to break free from. In these cases, very often, a different soul contract will initiate that is meant to really illuminate that pattern with greater intensity and, in a sense, help to pull us out of it. This is why very often you will see a situation, let's say particularly in a twin flame connection, where the divine masculine is with a karmic partner. They're in this cycle of toxic back and forth with each other that's become very much a habit over the months or years. And then he meets a divine feminine counterpart to whom he has a twin flame soul contract. And in this case, he's really shaken awake in the middle of this karmic cycle or contract that he's in. And this can actually help to pull him out of it or shift him out of it. So very often, someone will describe this from their conscious human perspective as feeling as though someone came along and showed them what real love felt like. So sometimes when we are so stuck in a toxic cycle or a karmic pattern or connection or relationship, we have difficulty extending our horizon, seeing beyond it. So a different soul as part of our soul family or as one who shares our core soul frequency in the case of a twin flame will hear this SOS call from our higher self saying, hey, this karmic situation is becoming detrimental to my growth, but my human self is very stuck in it, having trouble breaking out. And in these cases, again, someone might answer that call, enter our life, and help us to break free. But for a temporary period of time, there can be these overlapping soul contracts. So in this case, we could consider the soul contracts to be, from a human perspective, contradictory, because one is very heavy, very dense, very karmic, and the other is much lighter, much more spiritual in nature, and meant to, in a sense, break us free from the other. So we are meant to actually be catalyzed by that experience of having two soul contracts at the same time. But as I said, this isn't the only reason that we can experience overlapping soul contracts. Sometimes we are experiencing overlapping soul contracts that feel contradictory to our human physical self, and yet we feel like we are stuck within them. and that at some higher divine level, we intuitively know that we are supposed to be in both contracts simultaneously at that time. And we can't quite understand why. It's almost like our soul is saying there's still work to be done here in both contracts. This can lead to a lot of human level confusion, because when you're one who's highly spiritual and awakened and very much in tune with your intuition, and you're in this particular type of overlapping soul contract, you are going to simultaneously feel as though you're supposed to choose one contract or the other, that you're supposed to break free of something. And yet your soul knows there's either still a lesson that needs to be learned or something that needs to be done in this situation, which is the reason that both of these contracts are still in your life. And very often in these cases and scenarios, it's actually the case that if you were to look at the crystalline grid, at the web of energy, so to speak, invisibly surrounding the situation between you and these two soul contracts, you'd actually find that they are both meant to be supportive in some way at that time. In these cases, when you're experiencing overlapping soul contracts, but intuitively you feel that they are both meant to be in your life at that moment in time, it is because energetically in the higher realms, they are both supporting your maximum soul growth at that particular point in time, beyond the logic and understanding of your physical human self. This is sometimes situations we find ourselves in where we are simultaneously experiencing a very intense, possibly triggering, catalyzing twin flame connection, while at the same time we meet a soulmate, or we are connected to a soulmate platonically or romantically as well. So again, take this all as it connects with your own intuition. As I say, these videos are meant to connect you with that intuitive knowing within yourself. We all do have a unique soul blueprint for ourselves and our lives, and we also do all have our own unique inner guidance, and I always encourage you to follow that above all else. But I wanted to share this video because if you are in a situation where you're feeling very much quote unquote stuck, let's say you have both a twin flame and a soulmate in your life in different capacities, possibly one who is intensely triggering you and spiritually activating you, and another who feels as though they are materially supporting you. I want you to know that perhaps you labeling yourself as stuck is how your human mind is perceiving a very perfect and deep spiritual activation that is taking place within you as you are simultaneously fulfilling two mutually supportive soul contracts that are beyond the logic and reasoning and understanding of the human mind. So I also created this video because I feel that many in our beautiful collective here are having this experience of overlapping soul contracts to some degree. And if you are one of those who are experiencing this situation, I would love to hear from you in the comments under the video. One of my favorite parts of co-creating this community here is that we're able to share experiences, and through that sharing to feel less alone on our journey. So thank you to all of you who are here tuned into this video. If you would like to tap your energy into this collective more strongly, which does allow me to channel more specific messages and informational videos for you moving into the future, then be sure to like the video and also subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Magnetize Yourself, where I post more inspiration and energy updates. Thank you again. Take care, and I will connect with you here again in the next video.